It's not been easy for theatre companies during COVID, and the calls for help have come in thick and fast. But today, the Chancellor finally gave way to those pleas with a new £1 billion Christmas support package to help hospitality firms and theatres, like this one in Peckham. This reworking of Wizard of Oz has Effie travel to meet the Wonderful, a magical wizard with powers to fix big problems. In the real world, it's the Treasury's coffers that have all the power.
We've responded, I think, generously today. The grants that we've outlined, up to £6,000, are comparable to the grants that we provided for hospitality businesses when they were completely closed earlier this year. So there's a benchmark for you. Taken together, I'm confident that these measures will help hundreds of thousands of businesses and the millions of people that they employ.
Today's announcement will add an extra £1 billion to the government's COVID support scheme. Hospitality will get the lion's share through grants worth up to £6,000 each. An additional £100 million will go to local authorities to support other hard-hit businesses. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland will also get extra cash. In addition, theatres and museums will get a £30 million lifeline to help them through Christmas.
It was so critical to have this announcement from the government. I think what's been a challenge for us within the arts industry is that we're sat there waiting. We can see what's going to happen. We've been, working ourselves through in hope that we could keep going, but without that support of the government, it's, no theatre knows what their future is going to be.
Suzanne says Theatre Peckham is the lifeblood of the community, supporting young people and artists. They've had to cancel shows and pay people taking sickness. While government funding has helped them stay afloat in the past, the theatre is anxious about the coming weeks.
Who knows what happens in January? We've already taken a big, massive hit financially. There hasn't been the financial support in that. So I've got people who are off from work who have tested positive, who are still being paid. I've heard that other organisations haven't been paying, particularly for actors and freelancers when they've had to close a show. We've kept paying them, and yet we can't go on.
That anxiety is echoed with hospitality firms too. The volte-face from the Chancellor was welcome today, but it remains a small fraction of the £400 billion already unleashed. Plan B and the new variant have ripped through Christmas trading, with cancellations and sickness leaving many livelihoods in tatters. This image of government unity pastes over the deep divisions in Cabinet about how much money is left to spend to solve this. At the end, the Wizard of Oz turns out not to be an all-powerful sorcerer, just a man behind a curtain with big tricks. British businesses may have to face that reality too, with public funds starting to run thin and an economy that has to get itself home.
Helia Ebrahimi reporting. Now, I'm joined by Rain Newton-Smith, who is Chief Economist at the CBI, and the live music and events promoter, Stuart Galbraith. Ray Newton-Smith, many staff in hospitality, many staff in hospitality are freelance. How will the sick pay issue work for them?
Well, I think what is important is the government have announced previously that there is support to people who are self-isolating. So that payment can be apportioned from local authorities to support people who have to self-isolate. So I think that is really important. I think it is important that the Chancellor made some welcome steps on sick pay today. Might he need to do more? I think we just have to see how this virus what happens in the coming weeks. But I think it is important that he's answered the call of businesses from organizations like ourselves that, look, even though there aren't, we are not in a lockdown at the moment, the what we're seeing with the variant has led to a lockdown by stealth. We are seeing a huge impact on those crucial weeks, the holiday period, which matters so much for cafes, restaurants, bars, theatres, what we heard so far. So I think the Chancellor has made a really important step forward, but he has to stand ready to act in the face of what we might see in coming weeks.
But what sort of framework or structure would you like to see in administering this?
Sorry, what was that?
What sort of structure would you like to see to administer all this? It's a heck of a job to reach all these people. We seem to be muted for the moment. I'll come back to you in a moment. Let's go to you then, Stuart Galbraith. Are you the poor relations here? Do you see you being given the priority I imagine you think you deserve?
No, look, we welcome the announcement today, and any money is absolutely welcome. But the COVID relief fund is a blunt instrument and has been in all of its forms over the last 18 months. It doesn't get money through to the grassroots level of the industry. It doesn't get money through to the self-employed members of our industry, which come in at nearly 100,000 people. And there are certainly other measures that the Treasury can bring to bear that would give immediate relief and solace to the sector, both in music and in theatre. And we very much want to see an emergency return to a 5% VAT rate, which then trickles down through the entire sector, and also to reiterate the months of calls that we've made on the insurance scheme that has been put in place for our sector, which has had literally no take-up whatsoever because it's not fit for purpose. And exactly the scenarios that are now taking place, this insurance scheme does not cover us. So there are innumerable events that are now being cancelled or running at reduced capacities and are hemorrhaging money and jobs.
Ray Newton-Smith, I mean, the sort of sums we seem to be talking about, I mean, £6,000 is a drop in the ocean compared to the losses.
Yes, and I think, look, for some businesses, it's still going to be really tough out there. And I think that's why it's important the Chancellor put aside the discretionary money, the 100 million, which will go to local authorities to really deal with some of the hard price cases. Live events, absolutely a case in point. Theatres, zoos. I think we will need to see some additional support. I think what is important about the £6,000, or it's up to £6,000 per premise. So if you have multiple sites, multiple cafes, you'll be eligible for that grant depending on the size of those cafes for each of those cafes. So that will make a difference to larger businesses that are operating across so many sites, and of course the jobs that rely on them. That is hugely important. But I think one of the things that I think is also important is that the Chancellor has said he is ready to act as he has done in the past, and I think we still know there are definitely gaps in support. Another big area where we're still seeing a huge gap is around aviation, with all the restrictions we're still seeing on how we travel around the world.
Well, I mean, the money is urgently needed. And do we actually have the structure? Do we have the capacity to put these relatively small sums into huge numbers of companies?
Yeah, so I think the Chancellor's been clever in using an existing mechanism we had already. So it's essentially a smaller scale of the grants which we saw in the first lockdown. So it will be distributed by local authorities based on whether a cafe will have a rateable value. So essentially it's just a reverse payment. Instead of paying a tax bill, your local authority will be able to disperse that cash directly to businesses. So it should get to businesses quickly. And that obviously is critical because cash flow is so essential to these businesses over the holiday period. And that's what we've been calling for, is measures to support businesses' cash flow, so that hopefully we will soon be in a position where businesses can trade their way out of this, that we will come to a period where we learn to live with the virus and this particular variant, and we're able to get back to pubs, cafes, theatres, international travel in the way that we all would like to.
But when it comes to you, Stuart, the difficulty surely is that you will be probably one of the last sectors to come back to normal, and good heavens, nobody knows how long that's going to be away. I mean, you may have to be dependent on this for a very long time before large crowds are allowed to attend your events.
Yes, we were the first to close, and as we expected, the last to reopen. But the whole emphasis is on the announcement today is that this is grants that are orientated around people that own venues. That doesn't provide any support whatsoever for producers, promoters, marketing companies, production companies, sound, lights, stage crew, etc., etc. None of this will support the depth of our industry, which is why we're calling on for additional measures to be brought in.
You make the point very strongly. Stuart Galbraith, thank you very much indeed. And Ray Newton-Smith, thank you so much for joining us too.